Hi guys, it's Sherry from Sherry Bomb. I'm actually about to head out to a blogger's dinner and drinks, but before I do, I just thought I'd finally get around to answering the questions you guys have been sending in for me. Got a list on a bit of paper, old school, I know. I was getting the sort of usual questions, Mac or PC, dog or cat. PC, I've used Mac as well, but I prefer PC. I'm pretty sure we all know my obsession with pug dogs, so I'm definitely a dog person. Melissa from Sugarcoated wrote in and asked me if I could design and release one item of clothing, what would it be and what would it be like? Well, far out, what a stumper. I thought long and hard about this and I came up with an answer, but that's such a hard question that I don't know if it's the answer I want to stick with. I kept changing my mind, but basically what I came up with was a convertible wrap dress that could be worn in lots of different ways and was reversible. So one side would be a plain colour, most likely black, and then the other side of the fabric would be some sort of pretty colourful material, and that way it would be like 7 different dresses in one. That was the best I could come up with. That was a really hard question. Natalie from Stripped Bear, she wrote in and asked me, as a child, what was the first piece of writing or author that really impacted me, inspired or influenced me? I actually feel a little bit guilty about my answer to this question because I can't really say it's been one person or, one book, one thing that I've read. I've always loved reading and writing. I guess I just love the way it made me feel. Yeah, it opens up this whole other world, I do remember this one book when I was really little that my mum used to read to me all the time. It was called The Littlest Turtle, and it was about turtle hatchlings hatching on the beach and having to try and make it into the water safely without getting, eaten by seagulls and things like that. And in the end, there's only one turtle that makes it safely, and it's the littlest turtle. And yeah, that was that was my favourite book as a kid. I used to make my mum read it to me all the time. But probably another one that stands out for me is Where the Wild Things Are, just because it really sort of goes into that whole idea of, the imagination and can take you into these other worlds, and that's what I really enjoy about reading and writing. The second part to Natalie's question was, as an adult, has this changed and who, inspires and influences me now? That's difficult for me as well. Anyone who has the skill to tell a good story, basically, even if it's a verbal story and not a written story. My boyfriend is possibly the world's greatest storyteller. But I have to say, since discovering the blogging world, that has really opened things up for me. I think anyone who blogs, no matter what you blog about, having the courage to put yourself out there. I mean, you haven't gone through the rigours of, attempting to get published, so there's no real way of knowing if you're good enough or any of that. So to put yourself out there, and whether it be bearing your soul in a really sort of personal blog or even just your own style of writing in any kind of blog, I think that's pretty brave, and I think that's really inspiring. Mrs. BC from Mrs. BC's House of Chaos, she asked, what did I want to be when I was little and how have I manifested that in my life today? There were lots of things I wanted to be when I was little. I was one of those kids where crazy imagination, I guess. It changed every week or every day. I did go through this stage of wanting to be an archaeologist. I'm not quite sure why, but I got really obsessed with like ancient Egypt and stuff like that for a while. But I really always have enjoyed reading and writing. I actually, when I was younger, probably around 9 or 10, I actually tried to write a book. I decided I was, going to write a book, and I think I only wrote like maybe 1 or 2 chapters and got bored and decided it was taking too long, and so I gave that up. But yeah, reading and writing have actually always been a big part of my life, even when I was younger. So the fact that I am a professional writer, as all my day jobs have been, and that's what I studied, and the fact that I'm able to have my blog now as well. I'd say it's been actually quite present throughout childhood and through to my adult life. And then one of my loyal followers, Tony, he doesn't actually have a blog, but I'm sure you've probably seen him commenting a lot. He's quite involved with my blog, so I do appreciate that. He sent me through quite a number of questions, and they were really good questions. So I've included a few in this blog, and I'll be answering a few more in the next blog. So Tony's questions, the first one is, how old was I when I first became interested in the rockabilly custom culture? I grew up listening to 50s music. My mum was really into that era of music. So I grew up with that, and I don't know if I enjoyed it because of that or if it's just my own musical taste. But as I got older, I didn't actually realise that there was this scene, you know, where this music and this culture was still alive. And I remember I went out to a club in the Valley that is no longer there anymore, but it was when I first turned 18, and I went in, and that's where I saw my first live rockabilly band, and I couldn't believe it. You know, I loved it, and I just couldn't believe that that type of music and that whole culture embracing that era was still alive. So I was pretty much hooked from then. Tony also asks if I separate my everyday life from my interests. So when I go to work, you know, do I still dress with a touch of Sherry Bomb? The answer to that is yes. I do still dress the way I dress when I go to work. I suppose it's a little more toned down version. I've had jobs in the past where they have, you know, not wanted to be able to see my tattoos or whatnot, but the job I'm in at the moment, which I love, is they're really cool with all that. They don't mind my tattoos, so I don't have to worry about that. I guess the only thing that is different about the way I dress sort of day to day in terms of work and things like that is where I work is a very casual work environment. Everyone just kind of gets around in jeans and a t-shirt. But I also work, the department that I work in, I'm the only girl. So I try to kind of keep it pretty casual for work. You know, I don't want to look like I'm going to a beauty contest, you know, when I go to work. And the fact that I work with all guys as well, you know, I try to be, you know, aware of that. Tony also asked if I could have any writing job in the world, what would it be? That is a tough-ish question. I suppose I've always wanted to write for magazines. I like the freedom that is there as opposed to, you know, newspaper writing and things like that. But ideally, probably my dream job would to be a regular contributor to Rockabilly Custom Culture magazines. So the two main ones over here in Australia are Cruisin' and Deadbeat. I am very lucky. I have been featured in Cruisin' a couple of times, but I also actually got to write a 7-page spread for them recently about the Garter Belts and Gasoline Festival. So that was very cool. That was a little one to check off the list, although I would, like I said, like to be able to be doing that more regularly for them. And then, of course, Car Culture Deluxe and Rod and Culture are two of the bigger, you know, magazines that are out there that, you know, that would be a pretty cool milestone to be able to be contributing to them. Last question that Tony asked was, do I think blogging requires more writing skills or more life day-to-day experiences? I think that's a tough one to answer because I'm a bit of a fence sitter, and I would actually have to say a bit of both. You know, you need interesting things to write about, but you also need to be a decent writer. If you can't string a sentence together, or you can't spell, or poor grammar, things like that, I don't think people are necessarily going to enjoy reading as much. But yeah, I also think if you're a good storyteller, you can make almost anything interesting. And I've seen a lot of blogs out there that are able to do that. They make the most day-to-day, mundane of stories into something really quite interesting or humorous, and I guess that's what it's all about. Thanks for watching, guys.